Today. Today at 9:30. We were
Okay.
there. I was there at 10.
Oh, I went there
Sorry.
yesterday.
No.
Sorry. It was
All right,
today.
welcome to the regular board meeting of the Eastchester Fire Commissioner, Board of Fire Commissioners. It is Thursday, August 11th. I make a motion to open the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Didn't tell you his name yesterday.
I think you did say this.
I think-
So it's probably down.
Jamie couldn't wait to get to the
figured.
podium.
I figured I'd pop over here. Okay, so today we're looking at the financials through July 31st of 2022. We currently have a net budget surplus of approximately $650,000. However, looking at a comparison this year to last year, that was about double last year. Year over year spending, we've spent approximately $1 million more this time versus last year. I think that has to do with a lot of deferred purchases that we were not able to complete in 2021, as well as just some of the activity that we have had this year. So that's just something to keep in mind. So our spending is a little bit, our monthly spending has increased. That'll come into sort of play when we talk about the budget. We have made all the budget transfers that were approved at the last two meetings. As far as Station 4, we're continuing to use the capital reserve, the permissive referendum amount of the $745,000. I understand that there's a couple of additional change orders that are up for discussion, and I know that the board decided at last month's meeting that anything over the $745,000 for this year, we're going to use our general fund rather than revising the permissive referendum. And we have funds available for that in our fire equipment and capital outlay line. As far as Treasury Direct, we still have $12 million invested in 4-week Treasury bills. The rates have increased to over 2% now. The current rate was 2.15%. And we have earned approximately $32,000 in interest in the few months that we've been doing this. So again, we should be able to keep the full $12 million in there for, another couple of months, and then at some point we'll probably pull just a small amount of it out, so I'll continue to monitor that to make sure we can cover our operating expenses. As far as the upcoming budget, so the information on our allowable tax increase has been finalized. The tax-based growth factor we were waiting on. So we do have the ability to increase the budget 3.8% without exceeding the tax cap. I would like to recommend that we hold a budget workshop. I think it would be helpful. I know our next regular meeting isn't scheduled until September 27th, which is like the last day for approving the budget. Normally in September, we meet earlier in the month. I think maybe it was just a scheduling or getting this room, a conflict there. But I think it would be helpful if we sat down this year and went through the items that have been proposed to add to the budget so that everyone understands, or whoever wants to participate understands what's been proposed, what impact it has on the budget, and then to talk about how we cover the expenses. Because as you know, the last 2 years, we've appropriated fund balance rather than increasing our taxes the full amount of the increase we needed. We'll likely have to do that again this year. Otherwise, the board would have to consider if they wanted to exceed the tax cap. So I think it would be helpful if we had a more detailed meeting where we can just sit down and go through the line items, if that's something that the board would want to consider.
So for people's edification, if you exceed the tax cap, what does that mean?
It just means the board can pass a resolution to exceed the tax cap. New York State has a law that they want you to stay within this 2%. So it's like you can raise your budget each year the lesser of 2% or inflation. And they've estimated inflation this year at 7.1%. So they are getting some, blowback from municipalities that the formula should be reversed. It should be the greater. But the board does have the ability, even though that's the rule, you could vote to exceed the tax cap. That is an option. I believe it has been done here in the past, just looking at the percentage increases you see in the past. I certainly not since 2016, we've had quite low increases. I'm not saying it's 100% necessary. I just think it's, we should be looking at how we're funding our operating costs and what's sustainable going forward. Some of the things that, we've talked about bringing back the assistant chief. We've added 2 firefighter positions this year. There's, some discussion about adding 2 more next year. There's vehicles that need to be purchased. And then, also I know we're going to talk about purchasing the tower ladder. That's something that we also need to consider. We'll probably be looking more for like a financing arrangement there. Than sort of an outright purchase like we've done the past few times, and just getting ourselves set up as we move forward with what's anticipated, what these increases are anticipated, and what's the best way to fund them. So I don't know, whatever would work for the board if we could schedule that. And then we don't have any information yet from the retirement system. We did get a projection for our bill for this year. So it does look like our bill is going to come in about $100,000 less than we estimated in the budget. And I think that's predominantly due to the retirements that we've had, because obviously when people are retiring, they're tier 2 and they're at highest level salary. So you do see that reflected in our pension bill. But as far as a projection for 2024, we should get that like the first or second week of September. But we don't have that yet. And then night shift, which is really our other biggest expense. I think realistically this year we have to estimate about a 10% increase, because it was larger than that last year, and we're, again, with adding positions, it increases our healthcare costs, and that's something else that we need to include in there. So I think that's, again, it would be helpful if we could sit down and do more of a detailed dive on the budget.
Agreed.
When are you available, Jamie?
I can do, the last week of August or the first 2 weeks of September. I don't think you'd want to push it much later than that. That would be.
And what day or evening?
I think there's only one or 2 days I can't do. See, I have an orientation on August 30th and something on September 6th, but otherwise I can be available.
How about you guys? I'm pretty available. You want to have it during the day or in the evening?
I can't do day, but...
Oh, yeah, and if it's during the day, that's fine.
Excuse me?
Yeah, during the day, I can be available.
Paul just said he couldn't do it during the day.
Okay.
How about the evening? For you, Jamie?
Yeah, evening's fine.
So do you want to suggest a time?
We can pick a date. You want to do it now, or?
If we might as well, if we can.
I got to check my schedule, but yeah, pick whatever works for you, Jamie. Pick a night. 8, 9, 10. The following week.
You want to do in September, that first week, like after the week of Labor Day? Want to do the 7th or 8th?
You want to try the 8th?
Sure.
September 8th at night,
Yeah, that's fine.
7 o'clock?
Sure.
That's Thursday, right?
Thursday
That's a
night,
Thursday.
yeah.
So that'll be the subject to a special meeting?
Yes, because it would be open to the public. It would be a meeting. And I believe it would have to be at headquarters, right? I think that's part of the reason we don't have, but that might be easier, so we could have the computer in front of us.
Yeah.
All right, September 8th, 7 p.m., 255 Main Street. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
Do you want me to talk about the financing for the ladder, or we'll do that at a?
We can do it next time.
Okay.
We've got 18 months to pay for it. All right, thanks, Jamie. So on that, we have payment of bills. Somebody read a motion. I'm sorry, Paul?
I'll make the motion to pay the bills if they're found to be,
Let me read the motion first.
oh, okay, sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
Resolution number 99-2022, motion to pay the bills and vouchers as presented. The board has been supplied with one set of bills and one credit card bill for board approval. Chief Tween has reviewed all prior to the meeting, except certiorari claims and those specifically marked as reviewed by the treasurer. The treasurer has requested the board approve the following. Warrant 1 dated August 11th, 2022 for $226,000.
Oh, excuse me. You said 22,000.
No, is it 2022?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, maybe I did. For $226,000,
Yeah, that's better.
549.24. A credit card bill dated August 18th, 2022 for $839.63 for a total of $227,388.87. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Keating,
No.
Commissioner Roach,
No.
Commissioner Carla.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, that brings us to the chief's report. Chief?
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, everybody. Monthly report for July 2022, alarm activity, 331 calls, 7 fire-related, 194 EMS or rescue, and 2 times we gave mutual aid, once to the village of Scarsdale and once to Hartsdale Fire District. Vehicle maintenance continues through the use of outside vendors. Unfortunately, ladder 15, our spare ladder truck, did not pass its annual aerial certification. So we're waiting until Ruscon can take a look at it and see if there's anything that they'll be able to do. Otherwise, it could be an expensive repair, and it may not be worth it due to the age of the vehicle being 20 years old. Tim Dalton's and the fire prevention reports were emailed to the boards. 2 members out on long-term absence. 1 member is out on unpaid leave right now. The 4 candidates selected by the board for probationary firefighter position are going through their onboarding vetting process. And if they pass that successfully, they will commence the Career Fire Academy on Tuesday, September 6th. Speaking of the Fire Academy, the 6 recent graduates of the Career Fire Academy have been assigned to their groups and are working their 24-hour tours. They are being assigned to Engine 27 and Engine 31 exclusively so that they'll be supervised by a lieutenant for their first few months on the job. One of the 6 members was the chauffeur of the first due engine at a second alarm fire we had on this past Saturday at a commercial building in the north end of Eastchester, and he performed very well. And speaking of that fire, that was Saturday, August 6th. Captain Pinaval, working in Group 1, responded to the scene of a second alarm fire in a 2-story commercial building at 99 Montgomery Avenue. They encountered heavy fire upon arrival in the first floor office area. The windows had already vented and had fire showing. They quickly and aggressively extinguished the fire and were able to contain it to that one office before it could spread to the other 2 stores that were attached to that business. All the members performed exceptionally well, and especially under extreme conditions. It was extremely hot and humid that day. Thank you to the mutual aid companies from New Rochelle Fire Department that assisted on the scene, and Mount Vernon Fire Department and Greenville Fire Department for covering our empty fire stations while our members were at the fire scene. On July 12th, the board was emailed a quote for a Pearson Forcer tower ladder to replace the 2003 American LaFrance tower ladder. The lead time for delivery is approximately 18 months, which would put delivery in 2024, and the cost would be $1,852,000. We still are exploring options for payment, but due to the lengthy delivery time, I would request that the board authorize me to place the order with Firematic Supply before there's any price increases or further delay in the delivery estimate. On August 8th, the board was emailed a quote for the purchase of a 2023 John Deere Gator, model XUV 835M. It has a HVAC and it's a UTV for a cost of $28,046.47. The Gator is based on the pricing of the New York State Landscaping Grounds Contract, PC 69683. And I'd like to get an insert, an additional cost of $3,600, which would be used to purchase and install a Kimtech insert, MTB 101. It would be used for victim transportation, and we could put a backboard or Stokes basket on there. So basically, if it was going to be used in an EMS call or EMS situation, that's when we would use the insert. And last part of my report is that last month meeting, I requested to hold a promotional and award ceremony at the September board meeting. I estimate it'll take 45 minutes to an hour. And just for the timing, so we can send out invitations to the politicians, would the board wish to hold it at the beginning of the meeting or at the end? The last time we did it, we would start the meeting, the public session, and then adjourn for the award ceremony, and then reconvene the meeting after the awards and promotional ceremony. So would the board like to do similar, or would you rather have the meeting and then just hold the award ceremony at the end of the meeting, maybe half an hour or an hour later?
I think the ceremony at the beginning of the meeting would be better. So this way the public can come, they can do that, and if they want to go out to party or whatever else, they can leave, and we can hold the rest of our meeting.
So just make it 7 o'clock start time at that. What was that date of the next meeting, Esong? September
27th for the
27th? Okay, so I'll coordinate with Isang to make sure all the politicians get their invitations, and, we'll get all the awards and promotional things, and we'll do the ceremony.
And that's here at Town Hall, the 27th?
We do have it here, yes.
Okay, so
So-
lots of room.
Yeah, yeah.
Chief, you weren't planning on having a food or beverages?
I don't even want to get into that. If somebody wants to go out afterwards, that's okay. I would rather not
Okay.
have that complicate things, so
Yeah, okay.
we'll handle the awards ceremony and the promotional ceremony, and people can go out and celebrate after.
Very good.
The last time I did it, but we did it in Bronxville Firehouse.
Right,
Because
right.
we were right in the village hall over there.
Okay. So, okay, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Well done, Chief.
Isang?
Good evening. In regards to community outreach, so there were 12 social media posts in July on our social media platforms. A highlight was one of the videos that was covering the boat and the water rescue equipment that the district secured. And so that was it for the social media posts of July. Website management and monthly graphic design pages are being continuously updated as needed. And then I'm currently working on the monthly newsletter for August. We received 3 foils, and for record management, there also is continuing work for the awarded grant. They just needed some further information for the HVAC installation and the computer equipment that I have to purchase. So they're going to essentially notify us, hopefully in the next month or two, about the transfer of the funds once approved. In terms of grant writing, I went ahead and submitted to the board a proposal letter of inquiry to be submitted to the Leary Firefighter Foundation, requesting $24,000 for equipment and training. And just wanted to thank again for the chief, Jamie, Captain Thomas Pintoval, Lieutenant Dominic DiRienzo, and Tim as well for helping me with the research and the writing. So I could go ahead and submit that letter of inquiry before the 15th. And then there also is continuing work. There is a request for information from the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for a request for $120,000 and $120,600 for Station 4 drain system. So I'm going ahead and submitting that information as well, hopefully by end of next week. And I'll provide the board updates as it comes through. And then lastly, continuing work for the SAFER grant for staffing. So I'll be able to provide more information hopefully in the next month or two once I go ahead and start the work on when they open the next cycle. And yeah, everything else in terms of the office for just working on the OML document and helping with the onboarding process for the probationary firefighters and continuing coordination for the bid process for Chester Heights. Everything was included in my report for the board.
Great, thanks, Isang.
Thank you, Isang, for your dedicated service.
Okay, do not have any personnel issues, but we have some miscellaneous business to discuss. So the first one up is the tower ladder purchase. So I'm going to read a motion. I'm going to read 3 motions. One is for the tower ladder, and the other 2 are for the gator and the insert. So the first motion is motion to authorize Chief Tween to sign on behalf of the Eastchester Fire District a sales contract with Firematic Supply Company, Inc. for one Pierce Enforcer Ascendant 100-foot tower ladder with the options in bid number 817 dated 7/18/2022 for a total price of $1,852,000 based on the Houston-Galveston Area Council, HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
When we say tower ladder, we're talking a bucket?
Bucket truck, yeah.
Okay, aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Keating,
No.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo,
Aye.
motion carried.
Second, motion to authorize Chief Tween to sign on behalf of the Eastchester Fire District a sales contract with R. Argento and Sons Incorporated, 1 Prospect Avenue, White Plains, New York, 10607, for the purchase of a 2023 John Deere Gator Model XUV 835M HVAC UTV for a cost of $28,046.47. Based on the pricing of the New York State Landscaping Grounds Contract PC 69683. Can I get a second on that?
Hold on a second, Paul, plus the attachment.
Well, that's
That's a
second.
separate
Second,
motion,
okay.
because one's off the landscaping state contract and the other one is not.
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Keating,
Yes.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo,
Aye.
motion carried.
Lastly, for the insert, motion to authorize Chief Tween to sign on behalf of the Eastchester Fire District, a sales contract with R. Argento and Sons Incorporated, 1 Prospect Avenue, White Plains, New York, 10607, for the purchase and installation of a Kimtech Corporation Medlight Transport Basic MTB-101 for $3,600 based upon the pricing of 2 written quotes as per the Eastchester Fire District procurement policy. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Keating,
Yes.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
I just want to thank the board. If I could just mention, Lieutenant John O'Leary, as I said, did most of the research for this project. He's pretty familiar with motorcycles and things like that, so I figured he was a good person to reach out to. So thank you, Lieutenant O'Leary.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Yeah, we saw the email. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the private investigator issue. Tom? if you
Yep.
wanna-
Well, a majority of the board last year voted in public to employ a private investigator, and I believe a dismissal of the sick leave investigator is also subject to a public vote. The union president has asked via email the board not to vote on reinstating the investigator tonight because he cannot be here. And I believe in, labor and management relationships, so I'm going to acquiesce to his request. So I wish to table this agenda item until, either the union and the district comes to an agreement. They're working on it now. So if the entire board says that they're willing to table this agenda and we don't have an agreement by next September, I ask that you put it back on the agenda for next September's meeting.
It's fine.
Could I just make a comment?
Sure.
So there's a PERB charge filed by the union on that specific subject. It started off as first as the door knock, and then they amended it to include the investigator. So that may be adjudicated by a judge, depending on whether or not we can come to agreement. If we come to an agreement, then we do whatever agreement we come to. But if we don't come to an agreement, it's going to be decided by a New York State, New York State hearing officer.
And when is that hearing officer?
Well, Angelo from C&G is in the process of going back and forth with the union's attorney, so I don't know. I don't have a time frame on that, but maybe we should touch base with him and see if we should vote on something in public on something that may be
Right.
illegal due to a judge's or a hearing officer's decision shortly thereafter.
I agree with you, and the next thing I'm going to talk about is setting up a meeting with Angelo
Sure.
next week. I think that this grievance you're speaking of started back in March or April so we're talking 4.5 months. In
Right.
Angelo's last email to us, he said discussion has gone dormant on it. And that makes sense to me, because why discuss something when nothing's being done? So I think that that's why I'm hoping that the union and legal counsel and the district will come to an understanding before next meeting. That would be a perfect scenario.
Yep.
That we work it out amongst ourselves. If not, certainly, we better schedule, the administrative judge hearing so that he can get the information and decide. Otherwise, this is just going to sit in limbo. And I think that's not positive for anybody.
I agree.
Okay?
Okay, so we will wait to hear from the court.
Well, I think we're going to get in touch with our attorney,
We'll
Angelo.
talk to him next week.
Yes.
Right, but in the meantime, we're also going to wait to see what the PERB charge comes back.
Well, we'll see what Angelo says. If he thinks things are going well, he may say hold off. If he thinks things are not going well, he may be, writing a letter to the judge and say, we can't come to an agreement. So
It's fine.
we should touch base with him since he's doing the negotiations.
Exactly. No hearing has been scheduled so far,
Correct, okay.
so we'll have to do that.
All right.
Well, we actually had a Zoom hearing, and it was, okay, let the parties try to work it out. So there was a hearing
The first step.
on this topic, but the procedure has been put to the side to allow the two parties to try to work out an agreement. So when one side says we're not going to come to an agreement, then I would assume we would go back to our next hearing, like you said, schedule it. So
Right.
we'll see what Angelo
Well, hopefully we
says.
could come to an agreement. That would be the
Yep.
best-case scenario.
Okay, next we have an item called sick leave. I think that's Commissioner
Yeah.
Roach's.
Well, Eastchester's been blessed with great civil servants. We have a very visible and professional police force. We have a hideaway department that's renowned for its snow removal. We have Town Hall is full of competent and courteous and helpful staff. generous enough to allow us to use this meeting space here tonight. And the EFD, the Eastchester Fire Department, is also great. But a flaw has crept into its policy. Written by past chief of departments and never approved by the board, as far as I know. So I want to make a motion that the entire board meet with legal counsel, Angelo, we have two things to speak with them, the prior and now this, to discuss either rescinding the memos stating members can work outside employment while they're on paid sick leave, or we approve it. In other words, instead of leaving this in limbo, this is a board decision, it has to be decided. And Angelo and Cheryl have mentioned that they're available from Cheryl's emails. It seems to think that Angelo will be available next week, and I'd like to set a time to set up a Zoom meeting. I guess that would be also subject to a special meeting, and we'd have this discussion in executive session, and we'll plan our way forward. We have memos written by chief of department that are, you didn't write any of them. They've never been approved by the board. We have to normalize this. We have to come to a decision. Do we want our members on paid sick leave working their outside employment while they're not working in the fire department, or not? That's the decision.
Well, Tom, there's a rule on the book now that says they can't even have a second job.
In the rules and regulations.
That's correct.
I mean, that.
Since 1934. I haven't seen any other rule, although various times people have tried to send them to me, and I still haven't seen that rule written anywhere. And as far as I know, the 34 rule still stands. Is that correct, Chief?
The rule book's 35, and
Sorry.
I would want to run it by our attorneys, because, Commissioner Ranalone was reading it, and, his interpretation is that's when they're on duty, they can't do outside work. Like, you can't run a business while you're working at the firehouse. That's his interpretation. So your interpretation is that you can't work a side job ever while you're working at the fire department. So I would want legal counsel to give an opinion. So I wouldn't say, yes, that's the rule. Different people have different interpretations of the rule that was written in 1935.
And I suppose that'll be another issue
Yeah,
that could go
that'll
to
be-
PERB and let an administrative judge determine what it
Sure.
says and what is
Yeah.
right and what's wrong.
Is Commissioner Ranalone's interpretation written? Was it a written decision or that you gave? Something?
No, I read the,
The rule
Bylaws.
itself,
Oh, you just read the rule and said, I don't think this.
it says you'll
think
give
they
your
can have
full
the
attention to
job.
the
As
fire
far as I know.
department.
Also work 6 days a week.
It looks to me, it was explicit to me that they couldn't have a second job.
well, then that would mean that every firefighter for the last 80 years was not adhering to the rules and regulations.
Well, I don't know, I can't speak to that, but if you can,
I can.
Okay.
I can for at least the last 35 years.
there's a problem here then.
I mean, I try to have a vote in March to look into that and to come to some agreement with the union to rewrite that, but it got voted down. I did the vote again last July. The members were just not interested in addressing it.
But I believe also it's also part of the CBA.
No, the rules and regulations are not
No,
part
no,
of the
the
CBA.
idea of someone not being able to work on their days off.
It can't be, because it's never been collectively bargained. To be part of the CBA means that it has to be board approved. If these memos have never been board approved, it cannot be part of the CBA.
So then, in violation, Commissioner Ranalone, how many years were you on the paid personnel?
33 3/4.
So then he was in violation of 33 years? He had a business, but he didn't run it in the
Well,
firehouse?
he was never on sick leave. He worked, when he wasn't
Well, that's what,
scheduled to work in the firehouse.
yeah, he worked on
in
his
family
business. And no one had any objection to
And I
that.
don't think anyone wants to take that away. Quite frankly, I don't even think a PERB judge would ever take that away.
I don't think so.
It's not someone who's working. You're not telling people can have part-time jobs while they're on their days off. You're saying sick leave only.
You should not be able to work while you're on sick leave. If you cannot come to the Eastchester Fire Department and do
Chief,
tours, you should not be doing tours on
Tom,
the
I
outside.
agree with you. When you're on sick leave, I agree with you. But I worked for the Scarsdale school system for almost 37 years, and I had 2 part-time jobs.
I could get out
But,
the email.
I mean,
Exactly,
but
you
I,
should be able to.
but I never, if I ever called in sick, I didn't go out and do work. And I don't think Commissioner Ranalone did that. But you also said you wanted that motion rescinded. The person, if you want that motion rescinded, the
Memos,
person...
not motions, memos written by previous chief of departments that actually have written that they can. And that, I think, is what we need to vote to rescind.
But we can't rescind that.
Why not?
The
We're the
person-
board.
The person who made that motion has to
They're
rescind it.
retired.
I understand that. And then some of them may even be dead.
Well, again, I think this should definitely be part, thankfully, they're not dead. I think that, but they're definitely not in any authority to rescind the motion. That is strictly the board's. I think that this will be another topic for Angelo. And Cheryl, like I said, indicated that Angelo will be available next week, just like we did for Jamie. I would like to be able to set a special meeting right now for next week and do that.
Just on the subject, I want to make a mention, Tom, you finished speaking. Chief, I don't know, after it being brought to my attention, if there was a superseding rule from the 35 rule. Do you know that there is or has been?
The only rule books that I have copies of are 1935, 1965, and 1999. The 1965 and 1999 rule books say of the volunteer fire department. The only ones that refer to the permanent members or permanent employees of the fire district is the 1935. The 1999 and 1965 don't address the permanent members.
So no superseding, right?
So
We
the
have-
1935 is the only one I'm aware of.
What was it, part of the section was it? Section 6, Section 5 of the 30?
I don't know off the top of my
It's Rule
head.
6 and 7.
We actually can read Rules 6 and 7 to the public.
Do you know what article it is, section? Excuse me? I do have the red book, but do you know what article it is, or?
It's
Article
like,
6 and 7.
Okay. Here. It's pretty lengthy in terms of the section, so.
it's around the middle, I think. You have to get down to the section that refers to the permanent employees.
Yeah, 6 is on the bottom and then 7's on the top of the next page. I'd like to say page 27,
But I think those
don't
are
wanna be
rule
guessing.
numbers 6 and 7.
Right.
The section is the
Oh,
second or
right.
third
You're
section
right.
down in the booklet.
Thank you, Chief, you're right.
So Article 6 is duties of companies, and Article 7 is duties of members. Does that narrow it down more?
I don't think you're in the right section. You want
Okay,
me to come
no
over?
worries.
Better bring these.
Yeah, I couldn't read it. I don't have my reading glasses. Poor Isang got the,
Jamie,
No,
just
no.
out of curiosity, what day of the week is September
Gotta get to
8th?
that section where it says.
Thursday. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thursday?
This is the section. See how it says, rules and regulations for the permanent, go back, I want to finish reading that. You gotta go a little more. For the permanent members of the Eastchester Fire Department, which shall include all men who are employed in any capacity. So this is a section which begins on 19. Then I think it's rule numbers 6 and 7. So if you scroll down to rules 6 and 7, I think that's, so yeah, so that's at the bottom of page 20. So if you
You
want to
want me to
read
read
those.
This is the one, yeah.
So Rule 6, all permanent men while on duty shall, oh, did you want me to continue? Rule 6, all permanent men while on duty shall sleep in their quarters at night and shall devote their whole time and attention to the business of the department, and they are expressly prohibited from following any other calling or being employed in any other business of any nature. Rule 7, they shall be deemed to be on duty at all times except on vacation or approved leave, but in such cases shall be subject to recall by the Board of Fire Commissioners if occasion requires.
I
Is that
don't
the
know-
information
I
the
don't know
board
how you
is-
come to your decision on that, but it says they're on duty all the time.
Except when they're on leave
Vacation.
or vacation.
Or leave. So do you know of a superseding rule or not? Because I haven't, Tom asked about it. I was happily looked at it, but I never saw a superseding rule.
Yeah, I mean, our sick leave policy, I don't think it says that you can work on the side on your off days. It's just been past practice, right? Like that sick leave is, it started with the rule book 1935, you must remain home on days that you're sick. The 1935, it quotes, I think, Rule 50 and 51, which addresses that we have the right to send you to a department doctor to be examined, and the other one says you must remain home on the days that you're out on sick leave. And I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the exact quote, she could look for them in that book, but I think it's Rule 50 and 51, but I just don't know what section it's in. It's probably in the first or second section, or it could be under the career members one.
Yeah, but if anyone calls in sick and goes out and dig a ditch or delivers groceries, they're not sick. They're playing hooky in plain English. They're not sick. Then I'd say you're wrong. Absolutely. But if a man's off today and he goes and work, that's his business. It's his day off, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whatever day it is. But if I call in sick and say, Chief, I got a sore throat, I'm not coming in today, and then he sees me down there painting somebody's house or
Oh, you
cutting
would
somebody's
never do
hedges.
that. You would never do that, though.
But I'm saying that person would be wrong. Absolutely.
Even if he did it the next day,
Absolutely.
until he returned to full duty and worked a tour in the fire department.
Absolutely. I'm not arguing with you on that, Tom. Absolutely.
Except that the 35 rule says something different, completely.
No, oh, it says they, right, but that's 1935 that they can't have outside employment. I don't think that would, a PERB administrative judge would uphold that, but I certainly think that it should be rewritten, and we should clarify to the members of the Eastchester Fire Department that if they're on sick leave, whether it's 1 day or 11 months, that they should not work any day on the outside until they return to full duty in the Eastchester Fire Department, or if they're put on a minute, some type of light duty work, then obviously they could conduct their outside venues. That's my personal opinion. Anyone else has a different opinion, they're certainly entitled to it.
My opinion is follow the 35 rule. That's my opinion. Follow the rule.
Well,
You were
I
asking.
mean, it's certainly something we should talk to Angela and Cheryl about. So let's do that. That's the next step here. When are we going to set up that special meeting for next week? Anyone's availability?
Fine. I'll try and make it, whenever I can.
Day or night? Which is better for you, day or night?
Nighttime's better.
All right, you want to try another Thursday, next Thursday, with Angelo at 7 PM?
That's fine.
Sounds good to me.
Okay?
Not for me, but that's fine. You have enough.
I
you have
hope you
enough,
can, it's going to be a Zoom.
You have
know,
enough
because he's-
for, if you have a Zoom, then you should make all the meetings, including this one, Zoom. So you should be consistent.
I think so too. I don't know why we stopped doing that.
You have to talk to the chairman and Commissioner Brown alone.
Because if we have that capability, why not make it the greatest
I
access
agree.
available?
I agree.
So does that give you enough time to set up a special meeting?
Yes.
And what day of the week is that?
If you're looking for Thursday,
The 18th? A
18th?
week from tonight?
8/18, perfect. 7 PM with Angela. I'll email Cheryl and Angela.
And did you say you were going to try to do that as a Zoom meeting or a
Well, he's in
Google
Binghamton, so
meet?
there's no really other
Right,
way to
right.
do it.
Okay.
And
Well,
we're-
we could have a public meeting and they could call in, like we do sometimes with Cheryl, but
We're
that's up
gonna
to the
meet-
board.
We're meeting in the firehouse on this one?
That's what we're
Well,
discussing.
Cheryl had suggested, and I apologize for using that term, a generic video meeting is what I should say. But, it's obviously up to the board whether they want to do that and then have them call in, or if we want to do it from our homes on our devices. I'm open to whichever.
I'd say have it in the firehouse.
Okay?
My suggestion.
Are you guys all right with that? And then we're
I'm
going to have
traveling.
it,
I'll be traveling anyway, so.
so the firehouse? Okay, that's fine with me.
All right, thanks, Tom. Next is the volunteer recruitment letter that was sent out, and I don't recall who on the board brought this topic up, but I'll let them speak. Is it Tom? Is it you? No.
Tom Vichy called me. He's in South Carolina. He'll be back Saturday, so he asked to hold it over till next meeting, if possible. He's got all the lowdown on it. Good?
Makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
I think there was some question about questions that you're receiving from the public.
You want to speak on it? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my email to the board was to, how would the board like us to direct the inquiries? Because Esong had somebody come to the door, and, since the mailing went out, we could potentially get more. So does the board want us to just refer them to somebody specific,
Well, let Dave.
Behind the mic, name and address. No, he needs you
No,
behind
It's
the
for
mic.
television.
And you have to give your name and address.
Name and address, please.
Okay, my name's Dave Horn. I'm a 50-year volunteer fireman, retired volunteer deputy chief with the town. As I said,
Address, please.
I've been a volunteer for 60 years now, and I moved out of town about 10 years ago, only because I couldn't afford to live here. That was probably part of the problem.
Mr. Horn, can you give your name, full name, and the address?
David Horn, on 82 Crane Road in Mahopac, New York.
Thank you kindly.
You're very welcome. There was a question, I understood, that somebody said somebody got hysterical because this recruitment brochure went out. Excuse me. We did this recruitment brochure about 3 years ago, just before COVID came in, and our response was decent. We got 8 people who were interested in becoming volunteers. That all got killed. COVID-19 came in, and they didn't want to get involved. We took the same brochure, and I don't know if everybody has a copy of this.
I got it.
I don't.
I have one copy. I assume it was mailed out to 10707, 8, 9, and 10583. And I know 10583's gotten it, and tomorrow I got to make some phone calls to see who didn't get these. But let me just give you this.
I'm in 10583, and I did
It's
not receive
fine.
it.
We don't need it for now, but if you want to finish.
Ray Albany's got it. So
I saw it online. It was
Yeah,
forwarded to.
well, you guys can take a look at it. And it's-
Is it online, Tom?
I emailed it, Isang emailed it to the board because
Okay.
I received one at home and, when we asked, we wanted to get some clarification on, who we should direct the inquiries to. Because she got the inquiry about joining before I told her that I received this flyer. And then we figured, we might get more people. So, we just wanted some direction from the board to.
Okay, so please address that, how that was done in the past?
Yeah, so just to continue on, right now, I'm going to give you a little update on it. The volunteers are not dead. They're on life support right now, only because of a man who's no longer on the board who hated volunteers. At the time he came on, and it doesn't matter at this point, we had 8 applications that came into the chief's office. They disappeared. They never got acted on. This is before Chief Breen came into office. And from that standpoint on, every time we turned, we were rejected. So we just the volunteers went into limbo. Right now, as of right now, I have 2 applications that I have sitting at home that we're going to interview to see if they're really interested in. I have 1 I mailed out last week, and I have 2 that went out 2 weeks ago. So right now we have 5 possible applications for volunteers for this department. As I said, I've been around for many, many years, and one of the things, and just to sort of jump in a different direction, our purpose, we've talked about this for the past couple of years, volunteers. We're not going to take away anybody's job. What our feeling is, and if you talk to Commissioner Ranelone, the chief, they were volunteers before they came on the department, and I guarantee you they would tell you that being a volunteer, when they came on the job, it was almost like an accelerated thing. They already knew what was going on. They were experienced, they knew their apparatus, and so forth and so on. Our purpose is to sort of take volunteers and turn them into a minor league operation, because you're only going to use volunteers for major fires. So our purpose is to supplement the department as it is now. I mean, didn't you have a situation, in the past year, where you couldn't find people you're looking to bring in? Because the volunteers, which were from Eastchester in this area, they were gone, they're dried up. And I would think that, it would be beneficial to the department to support what we're doing. The board has never supported this. As a volunteer, it was my purpose when I became a volunteer to recruit. That was the only way we brought volunteers in. And I think that it's something that's got to be brought back. As I said, a lot of people aren't going to college. They want to go out, they're going to be electricians, plumbers, policemen, and firefighters. What's a great opportunity to bring in somebody who wants to be a fireman, get the training, get involved with the department, get the action, and then when time comes and they get called to go on the job, they're way ahead of everything else. As I said, and I'm repeating myself, you talk to any career man who has been a volunteer, and they'll tell you it was beneficial in the long run. It's a win-win all the way around.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Two things. Have you told these prospective candidates that, is it 40 or 120 hours of training that they have to be certified firefighters?
I believe so.
They would have to take at least firefighter 1, and that's about a
Firefighter 1.
3-month program when
That's
you
the
go
40
2 nights a
hours.
week plus. It might be a little bit more than
More,
that.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's over 100 hours for
Oh,
the
it's
firefighter 1.
121.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
you have to do a couple full Saturdays.
And what we were hoping you would do when you took the floor was to help the board give the chief some guidance on how we want to process these. If our secretary or treasurer is in the office and they get one of these applications, or they get a phone call, or they get a knock on the door, how should we guide the chief in processing these things?
In answer to that, the guidance has been in existence for 50, 60, 70 years. We take the application, we do all the work as a volunteer, and as soon as it's completed, we investigate each one. We ask them, pros and cons about why they want to be a volunteer. They pass that test. Next one is it goes to the chief. It's his responsibility to check where they live. And I think there's one other thing, but I can't remember what it is.
Arson background check.
Yeah, background
Make sure
check.
there's no arson convictions.
And that's basically it. It's a simple procedure. We don't try to complicate it.
Okay, so if I can summarize for the board, the chief would get the application, he would do
Yes.
his background, and then if you approve it, you want to forward it to the volunteers to take over?
So he's skipping a step. So
Okay.
these are people that are coming to the firehouse to, A, get more information, or B, to drop off the application. In all the letters that went out, there was a return address envelope, but I guess some people want to drop it off in person. But it should really go to their P.O. box, which is on this self-addressed
on there,
stamped
if you
envelope. I don't know if
look,
it's
yes.
stamped, but it's self-addressed envelope. They're supposed to return it to them. The company has to accept the member first. Then, once the companies accept the member, then the fire department gets involved. So it really, we're talking about even before the company accepts them, somebody that's just saying they're interested and they have questions. Should we direct them to you, Tommy Vichy, or Commissioner Laurie? That's what we're asking.
There's a case where, by looking at that thing we sent out, we could have done a tiny bit better. We could have put a name on there and a phone number, but we thought, we're going to let these people think about it. They decide they want to do it, they're going to fill that out and send it back to the box. And
So
the
we
box
just
is
refer
looked
them
at
to the
least once
P.O.
a week.
box, which we have.
That's helpful.
May I say something? After this is all done, the board in the past had ordered the volunteers to stand down. That was an order by a former commissioner and a former chief. So after all this is done, we have to take that motion and bring it back where they're able to come back and do their volunteerism, because right now, the order is stand down. I didn't like that order either when we got it.
Well, Anthony, can I ask you a question? Did the board vote on that, or was it just did it come from the chief of
It
department?
was done by one former commissioner and the chief at the present time.
So there was
There was no vote on it by the board. Am I correct, Dave?
Well, the last thing that I remember is that it was in the chief's hands. He could activate or deactivate.
Not Chief Tween.
Just
No.
Chief Tween.
No, the former chief.
You're talking about Grogan, I
Yeah,
understand.
that was done between the former chief and a former fire commission to stand down. But at that time, the volunteers were still responding to all calls and emergencies also.
When was the last call they responded to?
Pardon me?
When was the last call they responded to?
Oh, it's got to be 10 years, maybe a little bit more, Dave?
That order was given on 2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
So
was,
it's
you know,
about.
I found it when I was
about
cleaning
10,
up the
12
former
years.
chief's office.
The order was given. When was
Order
the
to
last?
stand down
Right.
was
When was the
2007.
last call responded to?
That's a good question.
That's it, right around that time.
So
because
they
the order- the order was
volunteers
given.
responded to calls in
we were-
2007,
we-
2006?
We were having a company meeting, and we got a
Yes.
letter from, in fact, all the companies at that time received that letter from the chief to stand down.
So the volunteers responded to calls in 2006, 2005, 2004, 2007. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we responded right
they
up
were
until,
dispatched.
till that was,
How many
until that
volunteers
order was
came?
given.
Story.
Chief, did you keep records, or do you know if anyone kept records of the volunteers that responded to fires during those years
Yes,
or
because
not?
after each fire, we had a trip ticket that we had to fill out of who made the call, what was used, if it was 50 feet of hose or just a fire extinguisher, and it had the name of the company and the captain who was at that call.
Who kept that,
It was turned into the chief's office
after each call?
after each alarm. Am I correct, Commissioner Renalon?
That's right.
That's it.
So it sounds like this is another unilateral decision by the chief that had no board approval, and really, if you want to resolve it, you need to make a resolution and have the board vote on it.
That's exactly it. Any other questions on that? I mean, as I said, it should be fairly simple. It's a recruitment brochure. And we're very curious to see in 2 or 3 weeks what kind of response we get from this. I hope a good one.
Mr. Horgan, but you're recruiting young men, whomever, for a volunteer spot in a fire company that has no volunteers for the most part, or they're inactive.
Well,
So are you asking ultimately for us to reinstate the volunteers?
Well, to clarify that, the companies still exist in name, but technically, we're one company. We're all part of what we call the Volunteer Officers Association.
Do you have any firefighters that can legally fight a fire today or not?
I would say no.
Zero.
Zero. We could
So we're
probably
clear.
be outside,
What do you think?
Support.
not interior qualified.
None of them have been for training in 15 years, so they wouldn't have their OSHA training that's
Starting from the
required,
floor
lockout,
and working
tagout,
its way up.
sexual harassment, workplace violence. They would have to have all that training. You have to have it every year. So none of them would qualify because they don't have that training.
That's right.
Well, not if you're not interior. You only need physicals if you're going to be wearing an SCBA.
Mask, yeah.
So you do, if you were going to be exterior only, you would
How
not need
willing,
that.
sorry, Chief, how willing are you to do away with the existing volunteer companies and form under one new volunteer company?
Technically, we have done that in Word. It's not anything official, no legal steps have been taken.
How come?
We've taken that point and, the companies exist in name only, but the members are now part of one organization.
They are.
And that's what these new people will come into. They'll come into one organization, not Waverly Engine Company, Tucko Hose, and so forth.
And so you're saying now there's only one volunteer company?
Yes.
And what's the name of the volunteer company?
Well, that's up in the air right now.
You don't know?
Could be anything. Eastchester Volunteer,
No, is there a name to it now?
no.
How can you have a company if you don't even know the name to it?
Well, it's called the Volunteer Officers Association and Firefighters. So,
Do you have anything on paper for it?
I would say yes. I mean, it's not anything that's been brought before the board. I think the board actually had a question about this when, excuse me, when we originally formed the volunteer.
I'm just asking now.
That goes back probably 40, 50 years also.
Jamie, you may not have the answer to this question, and that's perfectly fine, it's so off the air. But would it be beneficial for the district to take the 7 existing names that we now have in our policies and reduce it to 1?
I don't know if it's about the amount of companies. I'd have to find that out.
Okay.
There's 7 companies technically right now.
Do you have the old 8 applicants? Do you have duplicative applications?
I have everything.
What's that?
I have excuse, I'm losing my voice already.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything here.
That's okay.
All right,
No,
we usually have a couple of
I
bottles
have-
of water.
I'm a paper piece. I save everything, so I do have background for, hopefully.
Those 8 applications that you say went missing.
Well, we're still using the same application. It's been around for
Right.
10, 20 years, I guess.
Have you reached out to the other 8 you say you only have 2 applicants now. Did you reach out to the old 8 applicants?
2 I've contacted, and we're going to make arrangements, hopefully, well, today's Thursday, probably next week, we're going to sit down and talk to them. And then the other 2, I'm going to give them calls to see where they are.
There were 8 or 9, so you could ask them. Okay.
Yeah.
I think okay.
Okay? Okay?
Something to
You
think
know,
about.
just want to let you know, that's one of the biggest problems in this whole state, not just in here. You could go all over, and predominantly, after you escape after White Plains, just about all departments are volunteers. Very, very few of them are paid personnel. I mean, you could go right here in Mamaroneck. I was in Mamaroneck yesterday, right in front of the firehouse, across the street from the firehouse, big sign, "We need volunteers." You go up to Thornwood area, they got a sign. Hawthorne.
Scarsdale is, I don't know the numbers, but
Scarsdale
Scarsdale
has
is
volunteers,
half
and they call-
volunteer, right?
And they call them out when they have major fires also. But what I'm saying, Commissioner, this is the problem all over the state. I mean, you go out in Long Island, there's no paid personnel. Everything is volunteer. Everything. But just about every firehouse around has signs out there.
So what-
Volunteers are needed, or EMS people are needed. They have that also.
So what are you saying? Because they're here now wanting to become a
Yeah.
volunteer company, but you're saying that nobody wants to volunteer. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I'm saying all the departments are requesting volunteers. It's a hard thing. Years ago, everybody made it like a brotherhood thing and worked together. But now, it seems life has changed also, and, we didn't have as many classes then. We had them, but not as many, like, as the chief says. You got some people, just starting in life and have marriage and raising children, and two, 3 Saturdays out of the month.
Are you
Takes a-
for
Yes, I'm for it, but I'm just...
volunteers and having volunteers
Why-
help out?
I'm for it, but
take
what I'm
positions?
saying, it's going to require a lot of time from an individual. That's where I say a young man has to start out on it. A very young man has to start at 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, okay, just trying
I'm
to
not,
figure out.
I'm not,
where-
I'm not asking a man to volunteer who has 3 small children, because his wife probably would throw him out.
This stuff is serious work, right, chief?
The requirements for training have become a lot more stringent in, the last 20 years. Part of the problem was, and the reasons the volunteers were told to stand down, was for accountability, because the volunteers show up in their own vehicle to a fire. They could grab an air pack, they could go into a house without checking into the officer in charge, and we don't even know he's in there, and he could get himself in trouble, and he doesn't have a radio, and he can't call for help. So, and also the training requirements. Back in 2007, I was the training captain. Sometimes we'd have a drill, and Tommy Vichy, Vinny Spadaro, and one other person would show up, and we'd take a truck out of service to do ground ladder drills, and we'd only have 2 or 3 people. So, we wanted them to come to at least, 6 or 9 drills a year. It was only once a month. And most of the volunteers that were active back in 2007 weren't coming to the required training. So that's why they were told to stand down, the lack of training and the accountability.
They don't even know the name of their company. It is very disconcerting to ask a board, at least that's how I feel, to allow them to come to fires and they don't even know their own name. It's, to me, very scary. There has to be accountability.
Absolutely. Yeah, like if we were going to reinstate the volunteers, I wouldn't want them responding in their own vehicles. They would have to either have a department vehicle that they would go get, and then once they have a full crew of 4 people, then they could respond. But I don't want one person showing up because I can't team anybody up with him. So for accountability for their safety and for everyone else's safety, they would have to follow certain rules, and make minimum training, and, they wouldn't be able to respond unless they had a crew to respond with. So, I wouldn't I think it would be dangerous for the volunteers to, just have them show up in their cars the way it used to be, and that's why they were told to stand down, because of those issues, training and
Yeah, you have
accountability.
real liability issues.
Yes.
I think, Paul, Chairman, I think the board tried I think the first step is the board tried a few times. I wasn't here, sorry, I was absent, but now we have a full board. I think we should probably, I'll make a motion to foil the VBA VOA, and let's see if we get back with that. So, do I have a second?
Second, sure. I mean, you want to follow their financials.
Yeah.
As
And
a
we'll
matter
go
of
from
fact,
there.
Before, as a matter of fact, I think I left off with Commissioner Laurie at the last meeting or meeting before, that I believe.
You got to speak up, I can't hear.
And I thought, did I speak to you after the meeting last time, if you could get the financials for us before we
No,
do the
no,
actual
it has
FOIL?
to,
No, but I think I asked Anthony to get them for us.
I understand, but it has to be formal, the request has to be formal, it
Why
has
do
to
you-
be delineated. I think it was done 5 years ago, so just take what was done 5 years ago and duplicate that, and get a formal letter together and just foil them. You start there.
Fine, I'll second that.
I'll call the
Can I
roll.
talk? Jamie, have we been getting the annual form from the Volunteer Association?
We don't typically get it directly from them. We foil the state for it. When it should have been filed in February, I asked for it from the state and in, I want to say May, and they said that they didn't have anything to provide yet. So I don't know if it was filed, if it was, they misunderstood, or maybe it was filed late, but I do not have 2021 yet.
It's fine, just, we
Are you doing,
I can foil it again, but I did put the request in the same way we do every year, and they came back with nothing.
thank you,
The
Jamie.
state came back with
The
nothing.
state, correct, because that's normally, we just go directly to the state.
Okay, so go through it then for this year.
Yeah, well, I'm saying
Oh.
we did it after the filing date,
Okay,
but I was told that nothing was available. So I
Okay.
don't know
Yeah, both the
if
fin-
either
both
it
the
was an error they had to process again, or it hadn't been
Okay.
filed yet, but I don't know.
Was that for the VOA or the VBA, the benevolent? I thought we, both?
that's,
Okay.
yeah, let's just do both.
Okay.
Let's just do both again, go through the same process. Hopefully, I understand there was a whole bunch of litigation that ensued, and hopefully we won't have all that back and forth this time, and we get it.
But the request I'm making is just for the New York State filing, it's like 2 pages.
No, I understand.
The rest of the
What-
records-
I'm asking something different. Tom is asking something different. Yeah, so, and we made a motion, Paul Carlos seconded. Let's just take the vote and move on.
So to clarify, you're making a motion to request from the VBA, the
The
financials.
VOA, right, the same as what we did
who
5 or
wants
6
it?
years
Who
ago.
wants it?
I just made a motion.
So for
No, I
Brian
said,
Paul.
who wants it? Who wants it?
I just made a motion.
For what purpose?
I got a volunteer company says they want to do it. I'd like to see, before you ever let anybody back in the door, what's going on with that company. Just can't walk in here and say, hey, I
No, no,
want
but I'm-
to...
I'm
Hold on,
asking-
let me finish. You
Okay.
just can't walk in the door and say, let me back in the door, and not know anything about it.
No, I'm asking you.
Not
what are
our
you-
duty.
What are you foiling, what?
I'm not forming anything. I want to hear from Mr. Horn through the FOIL what's going on with the financials, who are part of it, and then we can make a decision
But
with the chiefs.
we have
with
to
the
have a
chiefs.
more defined FOIL.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
Oh, I understand. Just go,
So why don't we prepare it
That's
for
fine,
next
we could-
meeting?
we did this, my understanding is the board did this 5 years ago. I don't plan on duplicating and making any different than the last time we did it. Just keep it consistent, sort of just doing a health check on the benevolent, right? Just
I think
don't-
that
don't make
that's a
it any
good
different, just
topic for
duplicate what was
Ann to
done.
bring
Benevolent has nothing to do
at our
with this.
special meeting.
The benevolent has nothing to do with this.
My motion was just to duplicate the last time we foiled. Paul Carlo made a motion, seconded.
I don't have, well, again, are we looking strictly for the financials? Or are we looking for the actual status of each fire company? There were several things happened in the past few years, so, I mean, Commissioner Winter asked several things over the past few years, status of fire companies, give us a roster, give us all the names of each company, on top of the financials for the past 2 or 3 years. That's the last time anything we received from, I think.
You want to add to it and say the roster? That's fine with me.
I just want to know, you're looking for the actual VBA dollars, VOA dollars? What are we looking at?
I don't know what he's looking at.
You're talking about two different organizations.
You know what we could do? We'll go and pick up the last time we did, back 2000, whenever it was, 15 or 16, and we'll make a vote on it next month. That'll be fine.
So we'll table this for the September meeting.
And then we'll get back to Mr. Horn with
Then you've
respect
got
to...
to withdraw the motion.
Motion withdrawn.
But you just can't ask a commissioner to give me the papers, because it's the same thing.
Well, I was hoping to avoid.
I get it, but it has to be formalized, right?
Well, unless they volunteer it. Okay, that brings up our next topic, and hopefully our last topic, which is the chief's contract. So I have a bit of a motion here to read off to the board. Resolution number 100-2022. I'm sorry, Tom, you wanted to talk about Chester Heights real quick.
Right, we're hopefully, God willing, on Monday, we will receive all that paperwork.
The drawings and the additional addendums.
So that ESAN can or Jamie, whoever does it, can resubmit it. And we need to determine a return date for that.
Well, in the, today's email from our architect, I believe he stated Monday the 22nd.
8/22.
Right.
So is a week the industry standard? That you give the contractors a week to do the bid? If that's the industry standard, we should do it. Or if we want to push it, we might be able to get away with the 19th. So that's what the board should decide today. So that ESAN has that information by board approval, and she doesn't have to pull any more hair out.
Well, I think if we're supposed to have everything we need by Monday, the 15th.
Actually, I had to post something before tomorrow, just so that they know the interested bidders, because the deadline still stands for tomorrow at 4 PM.
Right, so we have that tomorrow, right? So the 15th is Monday, correct?
Correct.
And that's the day we're supposed to have the final drawings and addendum from,
That was a timeline that
Did you
Paterno
need the
did give
return
us.
date for tomorrow?
Well, if we are extending the deadline, the recommendation was to have a date set,
okay.
and then
I think we have-
I'm
questions.
gonna, just for safety, then, I think you should go with the 22nd. This way, if it comes in Tuesday or Wednesday, we've given ourselves an extra 5 days.
that's fine.
And then any idea for questions, when questions should be submitted
Did
by?
Josie know anything about the questions on there? Was it 27th? No, what day was it? You
On the
said
15th.
17th or 18th?
I think he mentioned the 17th.
So assuming, again, we need from him on the 15th, they have 2 days to get their questions to us, the 17th, and then a deadline to submit on the 22nd.
Yeah, we could do that, yeah. And I could also send an email to the board just to confirm those details before posting, but if they were setting on the 17th for the, deadline for questions and the 22nd for submission for bids
Right.
by 4 PM, then we could do that.
That's fine.
That sounds good. Do we need to vote on that, or is that just a straw poll?
I think it's a straw poll, so I should be sufficient.
Yeah, in the past, we haven't done a motion for extending the deadline, so if the board is agreeing to this, then I could go ahead and craft the addendum.
All in favor?
What did
No.
we vote on? I didn't,
Oh,
I
sorry.
can't hear nothing. It's hard hearing down here.
Basically, it's for the Chester Heights bid.
Yeah.
We have to extend the deadline for submitting bids because one contractor asked a question, and every contractor has to be given that information. So what we're waiting for now is for our architect to come up with all that information, to send
Okay.
as an addendum
All right.
to all the interested bidders, so we're all comparing
I
the same
said,
thing.
do me a favor, speak closer to the microphone so I could hear you. I didn't hear a
No
word you
worries.
said.
Yeah.
And unless it's these acoustical in here.
What's the new date for opening the bids?
22nd.
The 22nd for returning the bids, yes.
Does that work for you, Chief?
Yep.
Okay. I hope I explained that.
Okay, back to the chief's contract. So resolution number 100-2022. The board authorizes the execution of said employment agreement between Fire Chief Brian Tween and the Eastchester Fire District effective August 11th, 2022, retroactive to January 1st, 2022, subject to council review and approval under the following terms. Whereas Fire Chief Brian Tween is a non-represented employee of the Eastchester Fire District, and whereas Fire Chief Brian Tween provides a valuable service and leadership to the Eastchester Fire District, whereas the Eastchester Fire District, via its Board of Fire Commissioners, has negotiated with Chief Brian Tween regarding adjustments to the salary and benefit adjustments for Fire Chief Brian Tween, as described in the employment agreement attached hereto, are fair and applicable to the scale of services rendered. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved as follows. Term of agreement, January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2026. An annual salary of $192,228.49 in 2022. For 2023, $197,979.84. 2024, $203,903.33. 2025, $206,663.68 plus EMT pay equal to 1% of a fifth-year firefighter's base pay in CBA effective 1/1/25. And 2026, $212,863.59 plus EMT pay equal to 3% of a fifth-year firefighter's base pay in CBA effective 1/1/26. Benefits, New York State pension, medical insurance, vision care reimbursement, 13 paid holidays, 6 weeks of vacation, sick time, terminal leave, compassionate leave, and any other benefits specifically defined in the employment agreement. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second that.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Manalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Keating?
So I wasn't part of the negotiations, so I'm going to abstain, but I will say the chief is doing a great job.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Congratulations,
Appreciate it.
Chief, you deserve
Yes,
it.
Chief.
Congrats, chief.
Since our union president is not here, any local 916 comments? I don't think so.
We did this, right?
Okay, that we did the utility vehicle before, yeah.
You have comments?
Any other vehicles?
No other vehicles, we did the,
He'd love to get a motorcycle for EMS calls, like they have in Europe.
there's no public comments, I imagine? Okay, Tony.
Tony Fiore, Village of Tuckahoe. Is this live or is this taped?
Live.
It's live? All right, good. On the 27th, I guess you're going to do it live too, next month? So this way the parents,
it's live.
If
the
they're
family-
here, they're on
okay.
Channel
This way
40.
the family sees all the ceremonies, sees everybody.
Oh, nice
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
we'll have to advertise that.
Yeah, when is that? I actually think it should be at at the end of the meeting, so that everybody can mingle around. Particularly, even if the politicians come, they can come later in the meeting, and then they can stay afterwards if they want to spend the time. But
You
guys,
know,
majority rules, so whatever you guys want to do.
sometimes the local channels, the cable access, they have little flashes of what's happening. Do you have any knowledge of how to get something, like, it would be nice that if we had that on the stream, that we ran that for a month?
Yeah, we could request the
To
town of
allowing-
Eastchester, their government access channel, the Village of Bronxville and Tuckahoe to, just put a notice out, there'll be promotional and award ceremony held on X date at X time.
September 27th at
Yeah.
7 PM.
At Town Hall, sure. We can touch base with the local government access
Thank you.
channels.
That would
Sure.
be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good point.
The only thing about doing it at the end, there are usually a lot of families that come. When we did it in Bronxville, the whole courtroom was filled, including the whole hallway out to the main entrance. So this does offer a little bit more, but there could potentially be a lot of people because of the number of promotions.
In the beginning is that, how are you going to conduct business afterwards? And like, you have a lot of commotion. People who do it at the end, they can,
In the past, I think we've done it twice. We usually adjourn for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then that lets the room clear out, and then the board and myself come back and we finish the rest of the meeting.
A lot of-
That's what we've done the 2 times I've been involved in it.
A lot of families come and you have small children and for them to sit through a regular meeting and then
you
have
want
an
to
award
make it in the
ceremony
morning?
after that.
No? On the weekend, Saturday?
We could do it Sunday morning before 9 o'clock mass.
Fine with me.
Enjoy it.
Fine with me.
Any commissioner comments?
Oh,
No?
yes.
All right, Paul?
I just want to say that I did go to Station 4 several times during the month to see the progress being made down there, and things are moving along. In July, Lieutenant DiRienzo and each group captain who was working, all 4 groups were trained at Iona College, which was Concordia, in simulating hose stretching inside the dormitories there. And it was, they were, every day it was a hot and humid day, so congratulations. They did a good job of training those 4 days. And like the chief mentioned before, on August 6th, there was a 2-alarm fire on Montgomery Avenue. Commissioner Carl, Commissioner Laurie, and myself just happened to all show up at different times. We all witnessed it. And Group 1 did an excellent job under extreme weather conditions. And I also want to thank New Rochelle for responding to the scene with an engine and a truck, Mount Vernon and Greenville Fire Departments for sending mutual aid to headquarters to stand by. Thank you.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Ranelon said, being that under these heated conditions that we've been having, I really tip my hat to all those guys. Well done, guys.
And I'll make a comment too. Obviously, thank you for putting out the fire. But this is more in line with Lieutenant DiRienzo being detailed to the Proby School for a second session. He was asked by the Proby School, or whatever, however it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, to request it, and the board graciously said yes, so he'll be up there for the full year, 2 classes, where we'll have 11 guys trained, so it makes sense. Also, you brought out some very important information as far as I'm concerned, and this is really an appeal to all the firefighters and officers in Eastchester. We probably will not be detailing full-time another officer or firefighter up to the school, but certainly if they get their training and certification, we'd be more than willing to send them up there on overtime to do a training class if requested. So, and I believe there's some remuneration, there's some money available for the members if they go out for training, that they're reimbursed for the costs?
Well, so when so you would have to go to Montour Falls or take the Firefighter 1 training series is usually your first step. And that way you can teach Firefighter 1, which is the first class they get at the academy. The department doesn't get charged for the student to take the class, but there are, because the class is 8 days long or 7 days long, they have to go live up in Montour Falls. So there are dormitory or hotel charges. The department usually covers that. Jamie usually does a purchase order for the academy, so we cover their housing, their food costs for the, there's a food stipend for them to use the cafeteria. So there's usually no cost to the firefighters to go up there, but we don't usually compensate them unless they're like a newly promoted officer that's a relief captain. And so he's working straight days like in the month of February, because they only give it 2 or 3 times a year, like February and October, I think, for that Firefighter 1 class. So I have detailed people to go up there instead of being down at Eastchester, go up there on the department time and take the class. But most of the people would have to go on their own time, because we don't normally reimburse people that go for that sort of training for their time. We will cover their expenses for any class expenses.
Right.
So.
Thank you for clarifying that. And you mentioned that certain teachers had specialized certification. Now, you're saying the generic Firefighter 1.
Firefighter 1 is just a basic class. Then you could get certified in Firefighter 2, Firefighter Survival, Trench Rescue, Collapse, all those kind of things that evac for, car accidents, extrication, that kind of stuff.
So that's my point. I'm encouraging all the firefighters and officers to do as much training as they possibly can. First and foremost, because for the firefighters, it will help them get promoted. Sure. Because the more training you have, the more certificates you have, the more appealing you look to the board when they choose their next promotions. And I might be speaking out of turn, but there might be also opportunities once you've been specialized, when there's a certain training that the school has, that the board may be willing to send them up there as they have in the past. So if you don't have the training, obviously you won't be eligible. But I like that idea, because that way the person that put in the work is actually getting rewarded for it.
Yep.
I'd like to thank Dave Horn for coming. Thank you. And Lieutenant O'Leary for really doing a bang-up job on that. Yeah.
And you feel comfortable that you have the direction you need for when you get volunteer applications?
Yeah, well, when we get those, we're going to direct them to the P.O. box from the volunteers. So the one that's on the flyer, but I have it written down on my computer, because sometimes we get donations for the volunteers, and we'll just forward it to you guys. Okay. Yep.
For research and have my son getting involved in it, and he's up to 125 names out of 218.
Okay, very good. Yep. Yeah.
If I have the time, I may want to volunteer. Yeah, yeah. And I'm in the district. So. I'm game.
Okay, so there be no other comments. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.